Hey, what's up? In this video, I'm going to discuss what I think is the most common mistake made in landscape paintings. Hi, welcome to Paint Coach. I'm Chris Fornatero here to help simplify oil painting so you can get better, faster. Okay, so what's the most common mistake I see made in landscape paintings? Values. People getting the values in the scene correctly. There's different elements of a landscape scene. There's mountains, there's a sky, there's trees, there's grass, and they all have a certain relationship in terms of their values. What do I mean by that? It's hard to explain, so let's just jump right into the tutorial and I will explain it. All right, so getting the right value starts right from the beginning. You see that I've toned my canvas neutral color. You can use like burnt umber, raw umber, burnt sienna, anything like that. And what this does is it starts you in the middle of the value scale. That way, when you first start putting on color, you have a better sense of where your values are. And I'm starting here with the sky, which is going to be your lightest value. Landscape can be broken down into 3 planes. The sky is going to be your lightest value, followed by the ground plane, and then the third will be slanted planes such as mountains or hills, and the darkest will be any upright objects like trees, houses, structures, anything like that. See, now I'm laying in my mountains here, and I'm just using at this point like a thin, almost like a wash of paint. I'm using a good amount of paint thinner in my paint. I'm just kind of blocking in everything. I'm not worrying about detail, not worrying about texture with my paint. I just want to get a good base of establishing the values of the different areas of the painting. That way I kind of know their relationships to one another. I want to know that my mountains aren't darker than my trees, or my ground isn't darker than my sky, and just kind of making sure I set a good value foundation as I build up the painting as a whole. So now I'm laying in the ground, making sure that it's lighter than the mountains, but not as light as the sky. This can get kind of tricky. You might have to, play with it a little bit, but just getting these base washes down helps out a lot. Some artists do it differently. Some just work straight from the furthest element in this, in the painting, the sky, and they kind of work their way forward, putting detail as they go. Some just work dark to light in the painting as a whole. I found doing this way helps me the best to kind of establish everything right from the get-go with these this thin layer of paint. Now I'm moving in, doing a little more detail, and as I do detail, I'm still always going to be aware of my values and not pushing things too far in one direction or another. I'm working on the trees right now, which will be the darkest value within the painting here. And a big common mistake when painting trees is a lot of people will push the highlights way too far. They will push them completely out of their value range, and it's because it's tempting. You see trees and you see the really dark shadows in the trees, and you see the highlights, and you want to paint those highlights really bright. But if you really look at it, trees, the difference between the darks and the highlights isn't that big of a difference. I struggled with this for a long time, as I would paint my highlights on my trees way too bright, and it just kind of knock it out of its value range, and then it just, for some reason it doesn't look correct. And something I had to do here was my trees weren't popping how I wanted them to. They just kind of weren't standing out the way I wanted them to. And what I made sure not to just push the highlights, or the highlights more to make it pop more. I kind of looked at the space around it and realized that I needed to lighten the mountain. So what I'm doing right here is lightening the mountain behind it a little bit to kind of fit the trees in their right place in the value scheme of the painting. So that's a good kind of thing to take note of, is it's not always about changing your the plane that you're painting on. Maybe you need to adjust the plane around it, or the one that's surrounding it. And just as you go, adding color and different texture and stuff, you can keep pushing it, but just always be conscious that you're still playing in your right value zone. Like I'm adding in lots of different colors here into the grass in the foreground. I'm adding reds, yellows, using some yellow ochre, some greens, and it's very easy to start painting outside the correct value zone. So just keep aware of that. And I kept pushing the mountains here. I kept just wanting to add a little more detail, and I was lucky enough that I didn't make the mountain too light. I tend to do that sometimes. I'll kind of start my mountains out pretty dark in value and kind of push them out of their value zone and the direction of making it too light. But I kind of resisted here and worked it. Now I'm brightening up this path a little bit, and brightening up that path I thought really helped kind of set the ground in the foreground here. But there's a lot of different colors throughout the grass here. I got purples, I got greens, yellows, very different colors, but then again, all the same value zone. Now I'm pushing the mountain. There's kind of two layers of mountains. There's the big mountain here in the foreground. Back in the back left, there's a mountain that's a little more in the distance, and it's still going to be dark, still going to be in the darker value, the second to darkest value zone, but because it's I wanted it further back, I just kind of changed the color temperature of it and made it a cooler blue, which sat it further in the back. A lot of people was trying to add white to it to make it stand further in the back, and they'll knock it out of its correct value zone. Try not to do that. Try and utilize the warm and cool to push something forward or back. I'll for sure make a video on warms and cools and color temperatures within a landscape and how that you can utilize that to push things forward or back in a painting. All right, there you go. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Forza43. If there's any other topics on oil painting you'd like to see discussed, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.